Today, I want to list the 11 roles that you are about to take on if you decide to start a podcast on your own. Yes, 11 for creating a podcast. Hello, and welcome to Record-to-Report, Episode 3. This is the more consistently appearing, more podcast-style show on the PodcastMeister channel. You will be listening to the SE Electronics dynacaster broadcast dynamic microphone all along the way. This is a microphone that has a built-in mic booster that can provide an extra 30 decibel clean gain if you switch it on, in exchange for adding 48 volts of phantom power to it, and B, an option to boost the bass frequencies as well as the higher frequencies for additional clarity. The high shelf actually has 2 steps. So what you are hearing right now is its darkest setting, with the low shelf engaged, so with the bass boost, but no high shelf or presence boost. So this is as dark as it gets. Check out how it sounds in its neutral settings and with both the bass and the presence boost engaged in the previous episodes. It's worth comparing them over a longer listening, but don't worry, they are not too long. So back to the 11 roles as a podcaster. First, researcher. You will be the one finding and researching for the topics you will be talking about in your podcast. Second, writer. You will be the one who, based on your previous job, the researcher, will write the script of your podcast episodes, either in bullet points or as a whole script, everyone according to their own preferred way of working. Third, you are going to be the literary and artistic director too. So you will need to find the light trail for your topic and build up the tension, keep listeners interested with the storyline. Fourth, producer. You will be holding it all together, the entire production. You give it the final touch, you take care of the background, the gear, the guests, and of course, you will be the one financing the whole thing too. Fifth, the host. So you will be the one talking, the voice that listeners associate the show with, the key element of your podcast. Sixth, sound engineer. You will make the actual recording possible, wire all the gear together, sound treat the room, and master the final show, which leads me to the 7th role, which is the editor. In this role, you will take the raw recordings and cut out the unnecessary parts, rearrange the audio tracks according to what you have decided in your, 3rd role as a literary and artistic director to support the storyline, editing the sound bed and different effects, transitions, fade-ins, fade-outs, etc. And at this point, you will have your final audio ready. Recorded, edited, mastered, polished, wrapped in a gift wrap. But it's not yet ready, unfortunately. Sadly, there are 4 more roles. The 8th one is the publisher. So you will find the appropriate channel to distribute your podcasts and make it available in big podcast directories like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And that's pretty easy, by the way, because as a beginner, you can just use Anchor. It's that simple and free. 9th, designer. For audio podcasts, there's only one visual element to it, which is the art cover, essentially a thumbnail. Podcast art covers are just as important for podcasts as thumbnails are for YouTube videos, or just as CD or LP covers were in times when people were still buying audio on physical discs. So if the cover is boring, nobody will click on it. This is what your listeners will see the first time. This will be their deciding first visual experience with your podcast. Better make it right. If it is bad, no one will click on it. 10th, website developer. Not absolutely necessary first, but later it is very much recommended to have an own website where your listeners can get additional information like transcripts of your podcast or product recommendations, affiliate links. They can even subscribe for full episodes, depending on what your goal is with your podcast. And finally, 11th, SEO expert, who helps listeners to find and discover your podcast amongst the hundreds of millions of episodes of millions of podcasts worldwide. By the way, if you are doing a video podcast, then there are additional 3 roles, which are probably a topic of a next video. The conclusion is that don't worry if your podcast will not be perfect at first. Do not compare yourself to the Joe Rogans and Sam Harrises of this world. These guys work with a team and with a sizable budget, and nowadays you can get surprisingly close to the quality of their shows, at least when it comes to sound, so go ahead and do it. I didn't want to scare off anyone. Podcasting is great. It's just that I don't want anyone to be able to fool you into that it only takes a phone and a headset and Bob's your uncle. You also do not need a Joe Rogan Show's budget to start a podcast. Just be aware what you're getting into. And it's going to be fun. You'll learn a lot, so go ahead. Bye for now.